Yeah, that's good.
I once I got
Yeah, so then my sickness
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Good morning to everyone. Apologies for being late. We were also late last night. So there was a bit of a delay on the flight, so we got back very late. Got back to the temple late, so it was a difficult start here. But they say anything which starts difficult means it will be a good journey, because all good things begin with some obstacles. So happy to be here. And this morning we're reading from Canto number 4, chapter number 27, entitled Attack by Chandavega on the city of Puranjana. And today we're reading from text number 23. Tato vihata sankalpa anyaka yavaneshwaram mayopadishtam ashadya vavre namna bhayam patim Tato vihata sankalpa Kanyaka yavaneshwaram Mayopadistamasadya Vavrenamna bhayam patim Tato vihata sankalpa Kanyaka yavaneshwaram Mayopadistamasadya Vavrenamna bhayam patim
Tato vihata sankalpa Kanyaka yavaneshwaram Mayopadistamasadya Vavrenamna bhayam patim Tato vihata sankalpa Kanyaka yavaneshwaram Mayopadistamasadya Vavrenamna bhayam patim
Mataji's.
Tato vihata sankalpa Kanyaka yavaneshwaram Mayopadistamasadya Vavrenamna bhayam patim Tato vihata sankalpa
Tata thereafter Vihata sankalpa being disappointed in her determination Kanyaka the daughter of time Yavana Ishwaram unto the king of untouchables Maya Upadishtam indicated by me Asadya having approached Vavre accepted Namna of the name Bhayam fear Patim as her husband. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Translation. After she was thus disappointed by me, with my permission, she approached the king of the Yavanas, whose name was Bhaya or fear, and she accepted him as her husband. Purport. Being the most perfect Vaishnava, Sri Narad Muni is always willing to do good to others, even to one who curses him. Although Kala Kanya, the daughter of time, was refused by Narad Muni, she was given a shelter. Of course, no one could give her shelter, but a Vaishnava gives shelter somewhere to such an unfortunate girl. When Jara, old age, attacks, everyone dwindles and deteriorates. In one stroke, Narad Muni gave shelter to Kala Kanya and counterattacked the ordinary karmis. If one accepts the instructions of Narad Muni, the ocean of fear, bhaya, can be very quickly removed by the grace of that great Vaishnava. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishram Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srila Prabhupada ki. The spirit soul is unwilling to go back home, back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada said, causeless unwillingness. Very, very stubborn, very, very uncooperative in this endeavor to actually find its true happiness. And therefore what we find in Shastra is that to get the message through to the conditioned soul, so many different ways of teaching have to be applied. If it's a good student, then all you have to do is sit with them nicely in a room and just tell them how it is and they understand. But there are very few students like that, of that caliber nowadays. So you find in Shastra every single technique under the sun of how to teach. Right? If you want to learn about teaching, you need to go no further than the Shastra to find out every way you can teach someone. Teach by lesson is the most basic type of teaching. But then we can say another type of teaching is teach by experience. And therefore we find in Shastra that sometimes when a teacher wants to get a message through to the student, rather than telling them, they give them an experience. Can you think of an example? Okay, while you get your energy going. Krishna, when he wanted to teach Uddhava the highest type of love in this world, then where did he send Uddhav? To Vrindavan. Uddhav thought, I'm going to Vrindavan to do a favor to Krishna. But Krishna was actually doing a favor to him because he wanted to teach him by experience. So another way to teach is to teach by experience. Another way to teach is just by your own presence, just by people seeing you, seeing what you embody, seeing what you have, the aura of yourself, you change their heart. Can you think of an example like that in Shastra, where that happened? Where simply by seeing, the hearts of the people changed. Yes, when Lord Chaitanya met who? Yes, Prakashananda Saraswati and the Mayavadi sannyasis. I mean, they were Mayavadis, so effulgence was very high on their, kind of appreciation list. And when they saw the effulgence of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was molten gold, then it was like, okay, wow. His countenance was enough to convince them. Then we can say another way to teach is you don't have to teach by telling the person directly, but what you can do is teach the person by directing them to someone else who can teach them. Can you think of an example in Shastra like that? Where someone wants to learn something and the other person says, yeah, you can learn, but you should go to this person. They are close by and they... Yeah? Yes? Yes, exactly. When Vidura and Uddhava are speaking, and Uddhav is telling Vidura all about Vrindavan, he wants to learn more and more, then later on he's told to go to Maitreya, who is very close by and who also heard from Krishna. Sometimes we have to teach someone by seemingly deviating them from the course. In other words, it seems as though they're giving an instruction which is deviation, but it's necessary to teach them that deviation before they can go forward. Can you think of someone who came in the course of time to deviate, but who was actually playing the part of the Lord to actually bring people closer to the ultimate truth? Buddha, yes, we could say Buddha, we could say Shankaracharya, isn't it? Shankaracharya, he was Mayavadam Asatchastram Prachanam Bodhamuchyate. So sometimes you may also have to teach like that, seemingly tell someone something wrong to bring them. Similarly, sometimes you have to teach by increment. You can't tell the person the ultimate thing immediately. First you have to tell them something on a journey to actually get them to the ultimate instruction. Can you think of someone who taught like that in Shastra? Krishna, chapter 12, yes, Krishna says if you can't do this, do this. If you can't do this, do this, yes. Or you could even say someone like Narad Muni to Mugrari the hunter. In the beginning he did not immediately tell him, he said, you're going to kill, at least kill them fully. Kill them fully. That sounds like a very saintly thing to say. But no, we are on a journey, we're building some sensitivity within you. And here we find in the Shastra another way to teach. You teach by metaphor, you teach by giving an example, you teach by telling a story. You teach not by telling that person directly that basically you're wasting your life. But you teach them by telling a story in which they think, my God, this is my life. And it's very, very powerful because the false ego within us is so heavy. We're not just ready to accept that we're wrong. You maybe, just maybe, have noticed a small, slight tendency in our consciousness to be defensive. Of course, maybe it's never happened to you. But there is sometimes, situations where devotees or people may come and point something out to us. And of course, our first reaction is to be incredibly accepting. No. Incredibly defensive. They say we are judges for other people's mistakes and we're lawyers for our own. So when it comes to other people's mistakes, we are very clear in making a judgment. But when it comes to our own, we're very, very defensive. So Narad Muni knew that Prachina Barisha would be very defensive, like he would not just accept if you tell him. And therefore he creates this whole metaphorical story of Puranjan. And now in this story of Puranjan obviously represents the living entity who is stuck within the city of 9 gates. And now that Puranjana is being attacked by Chandavega, and Chandavega is coming in. Puranjana has been enjoying in that city with Puranjani. Puranjani is his material intelligence, the intelligence that schemes and plots and plans for more and more material enjoyment. And with Puranjani he's had thousands of children, I think 1,100 sons, is it? Or daughters, and 110 daughters, one or the other. So many children, a network of karma. And now Chandavega is coming. Chandavega represents time, and Chandavega then comes along with old age, Jara, attacks, sorry, Kalakanya is time, and then comes old age, and then comes fear. And no one wants to marry these things. Fear, old age, no one wants these things. But Narad Muni expertly redirects. And thus, Srila Prabhupada writes in the end of the purport, if one accepts the instructions of Narad Muni, the ocean of fear can be very quickly removed by the grace of that great Vaishnava. So, yes, this is the, remember this is a metaphorical story, but it's having a very, very deep lesson at every stage. So here, in today's verse, the stage is that no one wants fear in their life. And by the expert instruction of Narad Muni, fear can be removed. So much fear in our life. We fear about our health, we fear about our future, we fear about our relationships, we fear about the past and the mistakes we've made, we fear about the future and what decisions I will have to make. If we're happy, we're fearful that it will end, and if we're unhappy, we're fearful it may never end. So much fear. Therefore, when they ask Srila Prabhupada, what do you feel when you chant Hare Krishna? Srila Prabhupada said, I feel no fear. Abhay Charanara Vinda. One who is fearless, having taken shelter of Lord Krishna's lotus feet. So in the world today, there's so much fear. Of course, fear has its role to play as well. There is a instinctive kind of inbuilt type of fear within us which is very good. Like, you know, when you walk across the road and you see a car coming at 100 miles per hour and you feel some fear, that's probably a good thing, because it means it helps you to survive in this world, it helps you to be alert. So there's a type of instinctive fear within us which is actually inbuilt, which is actually very, very good. However, there is another type of fear within us which is very, very artificial. This other type of fear within us which is based on a false conception of reality. This type of fear is the fear that the Bhagavatam describes that we have to try to get rid of. Bhayam dvidiya bhiniveshadasya dishada petasya viparyayo smriti tanmayayato buddha abhajetam bhaktyayakayesham gurudevatatma. The Bhagavatam in the 11th canto describes where fear comes from. Ishada petasya. The first stage of fear is that one turns away from Krishna. Krishna bahir muga haya bhogavan chakare nikata stamaya dore japatiya dhare. The first stage of fear is that you turn away from Krishna. The second stage of fear is after you've turned away from Krishna, Dvitiya, you begin to see a reality, but you see a reality in which Krishna isn't in the picture. So then, once you see a reality in which Krishna isn't in the picture, then what happens? Then mayayato, you become overcome by illusion. Maya basically covers you. And then bhayam, fear comes, because basically you've taken Krishna out of the picture. So therefore, to reverse the process, we have to turn back to Krishna. We have to see the world with Krishna in the picture. And when we see Krishna, when we see the world with Krishna in the picture, then there can be no Maya, because Krishna Surya Samahoya Maya Krishna Surya Samahoya Maya Andhakar Yaha Krishna Tahan Nahi Maya Radhikar. So as soon as you turn to Krishna, you see the world with Krishna in the picture, then there's no Maya, and if there's no Maya, then there's no fear. So therefore, the whole process of Krishna consciousness is to try to keep bringing Krishna back in. trying to see Krishna as part of the equation, part of every single situation in this world, and then you'll have no fear. But people are going about the wrong way to try to remove their fear. They're trying to do it on a physical level by creating all kinds of arrangements. They're trying to do it on a mental level by trying to cultivate all different kinds of mindsets. But the real fearlessness only comes when you bring Krishna into the picture, because then there's no room for Maya, and when there's no Maya, there's no fear. So this is a very, very deep science of how to actually remove fear at its very root. Thousands of years ago, there was a very famous king called Bhatrahari. Have you heard the name? Bhatrahari was a very famous king, and he was living in Avanti, Ujjain. So it's a very, very interesting story. So he was a king, he was married, he had one wife, her name was Pingala. So anyway, he loved her very, very much. He was like, completely starry-eyed, like he had given his heart and his life and his love. And so he was a great king. So in his life, he wrote 3 poems of 100 verses. His first poem was known as Niti Shatakam, 100 verses of logic of how to rule the kingdom. His second poem of 100 verses was known as Shringar Satakam, or the poem of the beauty of the opposite gender. And you know what his third set of 100 verses of poetry was called? Vairagya Satakam. The 100 verses of renunciation. This is the journey he went on. And you want to know how he went on that journey? So basically he was a great king, so he wrote all these wisdom about how to rule. Anyway, at one point in his journey as a king, as a Raja Rishi, naturally when a sadhu or a saintly person comes, then you receive them very nicely. So he was ruling his kingdom in Ujjain, in Avantipur, and then one day a very saintly person came. So the saintly person was very pleased with him, and therefore he decided to give Bhatrahari a gift. And the gift that he gave Bhatrahari was a fruit, and it was the fruit of immortality. In other words, whoever would take this fruit would become immortal. So Bhatrahari was very happy to receive his fruit from the sage, and as the sage went off, he thought, should I take the fruit myself? Then I'll be immortal. So that's a good idea. But then he thought to himself, but what's the point of living forever if I cannot live with Pingala? Therefore, more important than even me living forever is that Pingala should live forever, because I don't want to spend one moment of my life without her. He was really sold out. So then he decided, yes, I will not take the fruit for myself, I will give it to my very dear Pingala. So one day he came to her and he said, I've got a gift for you. I want to give you, because I love you so much, I want to give you that thing which is the most dear to me, the most valuable to me. What can be more valuable than life itself? I want to give that to you. Please, my dear Pingala, take this fruit of immortality. She received, wow, a fruit of immortality? I can become immortal? Wow. So she thanked him. He was very happy, and that day they parted ways. And as Pingala was going, she was thinking, wow, this fruit of immortality, I can take it. But what is life without love? And what happened is that Pingala, every single day after she would meet Bhatrahari, in the evening she would go out hunting with a charioteer. And she fell in love with that charioteer. charioteer was her sweetheart. And Bhatrahari didn't know this. So as he gave the fruit to Pingala, and Pingala was going away, and in the evening she was coming to meet the charioteer, then she thought, I could take this fruit and be immortal. But what is life without the charioteer whom I love? So in that very evening she decided to give the fruit of immortality to the charioteer. She says, wow, this is for you. The charioteer, he took the fruit and he was thinking, oh my God, this is so valuable, but what is this fruit without love? And Pingala didn't know, but the charioteer, every day after he would meet her and do his job for her and earn money, that charioteer would go to see a prostitute. And that prostitute was his sweetheart. And so after he took Pingala out for that day, then he went home, and then in the very next scene he met his sweetheart, the prostitute. And he said, I have something very valuable to give. I could take this fruit and be immortal, but I don't want to live without you. And therefore, you please take this fruit. And so he gave the fruit to that prostitute. And the prostitute went. And when she went back, she said to herself, all my life I was looking for this person who I could be with. Because I knew that if I could be with this person, then my life would be perfect, my life would be beautiful. But I was thinking, this person is so high, this person is so elevated, this person is so powerful. What can I give this person? How can I attract this person's attention? I don't have anything within my power to attract this person's attention. But now I have the fruit of immortality. And now this person who otherwise I could never get their attention, I can get their attention now. And so the very next day the prostitute went to the palace. And in the palace she said, I have to see the king, Bhatrahari. He doesn't want to see me, I'm insignificant, but I have something for him that I know will attract his attention. And so she got an audience with Bhatrahari. And she came to Bhatrahari and she said, I have something for you. I could be immortal. He's thinking, this sounds familiar. I could be immortal, but I have to give it to you. And as soon as Bhatrahari saw Jagannath, Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki Jai, Shri Gunidai ki Jai. As soon as he saw the fruit of immortality, he said, there can't be two of these. There can only be one. And that means I gave it to Pingala. Pingala gave it to the charioteer. The charioteer gave it to the prostitute. And the prostitute is coming back and giving it to me. This is the original love triangle. And he realized, oh my God, there's no love in this world. You give your love to someone, you give your heart to someone, they give it to someone else, they give it to someone. No one is reciprocating with anyone else. Therefore, why will I now keep giving my love to someone in this world who will just, I gave you my heart and the very next day you threw it away. I'm not going to be involved in any of this anymore. And therefore, after his 100 verses in which he glorified Pingala's beauty, then he created another 100 verses called Vairagyastakam, in which he gave his realizations of renunciation. But why am I telling you this story today? Because in one of his verses of Vairagyastakam, the 100 verses of renunciation, he says something about fear, which is very, very interesting. Shall I read that for you? Yes. This is his realization. Bhoge rogha bhayam kule chuti bhayam vite nripalad bhayam mane dainya bhayam bale ripu bhayam rupe jaraya bhayam shastre vadi bhayam gune Kalabhayam kaye kritan tadbhayam sarvam vastu bhayanvitam bhuvinrinam vairagyameva bhayam. It's very beautiful. This is what he says in one of his verses of Vairagyastakam about fear. The first thing he says is, he says, Bhoge roga bhayam. Enjoyment fears disease. Okay, just remember these bites of wisdom which he gives. First thing is, he says, enjoyment fears disease. Second thing he says is kule chuti bhayam. Attachment fears loss of family. Then he says vide nripalayad bhayam. Greed fears loss of money. Then he says bale ripu bhayam. The powerful fear their enemies. Then he says, Rupe Jaraya Bhayam. Beauty fears old age. Then he says, Shastre Vadi Bhayam. Scholarship fears new theories. Kaye kritanat bhayam. And everyone fears death. So this is very, very interesting. Basically, he's explaining where fear comes from. Enjoyment fears disease. When we try to enjoy, when we base the value of our existence on how much we're able to enjoy, then what we're constantly fearing is that there will be some disease. Because disease means sensory capacity becomes diminished. So if sensory capacity is diminished, then your concept of life is maximum sense gratification, then naturally you're going to fear disease. Therefore, I remember one of my relatives, he was like so stubborn that for his life he would never go to the doctor. And I was like, why would you not go to the... He said, because I'm scared they're going to tell me there's something wrong with me. But I said, but you know, what if you do have something wrong with you? Aren't you scared of that? He said, no, I'm more scared that they will, about how that whole thing will feel. So better, even if I have something wrong with me, I can deal with that. But I don't want to know about it. I just want to get on with my life. Interesting. And attachment fears loss of family. Because we are attached to individuals, therefore there's this constant fear that people will disappear from my life. Right? Therefore this fruit of immortality was being given. Because, it's very different. Of course, there's a spiritual version of this. Even Haridas Thakur, he said to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that, let me leave this world before you leave, because I will not be able to bear seeing your disappearance from this world. But in the material sphere, a lot of this is based on enjoyment, that people feel if other people are not there, how will they be able to enjoy in their life? So definitely we should have affection for people, definitely we should have a sense of intimacy and relationship, but we should not be attached. Because when there's that attachment, then constantly there will be the fear of the loss of family. Greed fears loss of money. Therefore, when we, again, money is a very, very interesting thing. The whole world is moving on money. But the interesting thing is that money brings you anxiety when you're trying to get it, because you have to work so hard. Money gives you anxiety when you have it, because you're always in anxiety that you're going to lose it. And money gives you anxiety when you actually lose it, because it's like, oh my God, I've just lost all my money. So money at every stage actually brings you anxiety. Yeah. What do we base our life on? So greed, fears, loss of money. The powerful or those who are attached to position fear enemies, because they're always on the lookout, like someone may replace me, someone may remove me. We even find this in a devotional context, like say for example, if someone is really good at a certain type of service, and basically you've based your identity that I'm useful because I'm the best at this, or because I have this position, then we're constantly insecure that someone may come along and do it better. If you're a good singer, you're constantly insecure. Maybe there's a better singer, or a good speaker, or like that. Beauty, fears, impending old age. Therefore this cosmetics industry is so big because people try everything. And then scholarship fears new theories, that when one is considered learned, then one is always fearing that someone will uncover something that will topple me and show that I don't know as much as people think I know, and everyone fears death. So if you look at how people are trying to overcome fear in the world, enjoyment fears disease, so what is the whole world trying to do? Remove disease. But the spiritualist realizes that's not the way to overcome fear. The way to overcome fear is remove the enjoying spirit. See? Attachment fears loss of family. So what do we try to do in our life? We try as much as we can to ensure that the loved ones around us won't disappear. Anything we can do, any treatment, any insurance, health insurance, this, that. But maybe that's not the way to overcome fear. Maybe we need to get rid of our attachment. Greed fears loss of money. So what do we try to do? Create accounts overseas, Swiss bank account, tax haven. Create situations whereby our wealth will be maintained. But that's not the way to overcome fear. You have to overcome greed, because then you won't have any fear of loss of money. Beauty fears impending old age, so people try to stay young. But the real thing you need to overcome is identification with material beauty. Scholarship fears new theories that you have to overcome, rather than trying to constantly upgrade your knowledge so that you're the highest. Rather to overcome that ego of wanting to be the most learned. So in this way we see that the spiritual approach to overcoming fear is a different approach. It gets to the root of the issue. And therefore Bhatrahari in his Vairagyastakam, he helps us to understand this, that if we really want to experience life, you see, we can never experience life when fear is constantly overshadowing us, because we'll never be able to live in the moment. We can never make the best decisions in our life when fear is constantly overshadowing us. We can never be ready to take the risks in our life that will help us to achieve our potential if fear is constantly overcoming us. We will never really be able to connect with people in the deepest way if fear is constantly overcoming us, because we won't be able to be vulnerable in that relationship and then open our heart to have a proper exchange. Therefore fear blocks even relationships coming about. We'll never be able to achieve our potential in life, in what we can do in service to Krishna, if we're overshadowed by fear, because we'll also always be constantly held back by the fear of failure, the fear of self-consciousness and all these kind of things. And therefore we cannot experience the totality of life until we are free from fear. Krishna says to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, Dukeshu anudvignamanaha, sukeshu vigataspraha, Vitaraga bhaya krodha stitadhir muniruchyate. Krishna says this is the type of person who can experience the totality of the life, the stitadhi, the sage of the steady mind, because they've learned to navigate the roller coaster journey. But more importantly, why have they been able to navigate it? Because Vitta Raga Bhaya Krodha, they're free from attachment, fear and anger, and therefore they're stage of the steady mind. So our constant endeavor in spiritual life is to try to keep bringing Krishna in, to try to keep seeing Krishna within everything and every situation and every interaction. And in this situation, then there will never be fear. This was Prahlad. In the Sri Vaishnava commentaries of 7th canto, they asked Prahlad, weren't you fearful when they tried to put you in a pit of snakes? So Prahlad said, my father is Vishnu, and Vishnu is always resting on Anantashesh, and Anantashesh is the master of all snakes. So if you put me in a pit with the servants of my master's servant, will they do anything to me? They asked Prahlad, no, but they threw you in a fire, were you not fearful? Prahlad said, the fire, my father is Vishnu, and the fire, Yagyavai Vishnu, the fire represents the mouth of Vishnu. So if you put me in the mouth of my father, you think he will eat me? Wow. He said, but Prahlad, were you not fearful when they gave you poison? Prahlad said, when they churned the milk ocean, then Lakshmi came out. My father is Vishnu, and Lakshmi is my mother. And then also came from that churning of the milk ocean was poison. That means poison is my maternal uncle. So if you put me in contact with my maternal uncle, you think I will die? Wow. Yo mam pasyati sarvatra sarvam chami pasyati tasyaham na pranashyami sachame na pranashyati. Krishna says, for one who sees me everywhere and sees me in everything, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. So how do we develop that kind of vision where we see Krishna everywhere? As soon as you have that vision, then there's no fear. No fear, then you can have proper relationships, then you can make proper decisions, then you can achieve what you're meant to achieve in this life for Krishna. And then you can live life and experience the presence instead of constantly being worried about the past or the future. Brahma Bhuta Prashanatma na sochati na kankshati. There's no lamentation about the past, no hankering for the future, but your Prashanatma, fully joyful soul in the here and now, being established on the Brahman, the realization of the Supreme Lord. So Narad Muni here helps us to, by his instructions, remove bhaya from our life. And this is the purpose of Bhagavatam. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayet. So we're on a mission to conquer. And one of the things we have to conquer in our life is we have to conquer over fear. And in that very means, in that very conquest to conquer over fear, the Bhagavatam is the very means of conquest. If you keep the Bhagavatam close to you, then these stories, these mentalities and consciousness of the devotees, we can begin to absorb it, and then we can achieve the same results. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. If we have a few minutes, it's 8:30. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So we have to conquer fear, and as we also know, we have to conquer lust and so many things. And for a neophyte, there can be a tendency of suppressing. We hear about fear, it's not good, then it comes up, so push it down, push it away, and can be unhealthy also. Maybe you can share something about how to, for a conditioned living entity who's practicing to overcome fear, how to practically do that when fear comes.
Yes. Okay, so then fear is there, and sometimes to just try to ignore it feels artificial, and then it always comes back to haunt us. So how do we actually deal with fear? Yeah, all of these emotions, there is always a middle way. Like say for example with anger, one extreme is to let it loose, which is not good. And the other extreme with anger is to lock it up, which is also not good. And therefore the middle way is always, if you feel some anger, then to try to process it and try to see it and digest it. And it's the same thing with most of these emotions, like fear. If we act on fear and if we allow fear to come in the foreground, then it will block us. And if we have this deep fear within us, but we haven't addressed it and we're just ignoring it, psychologically it will still keep hankering us, because whether we know it or not, it will constantly be blocking us. Therefore, how do we actually process fear? So the first thing is, that's why the Shastra is there. Because the Shastra is actually helping us to frame our emotions. You see, they say a Kanistha sees the Shastra through their emotions, but the Madhyam sees their emotions through the Shastra. So what Shastra is doing is giving you an opportunity to see your own emotional state from an elevated vantage point that you're not at the moment. So you have fear, and then you read the Bhagavatam, the interactions of Krishna's devotees, and then gradually you become more equipped to see that your fear is irrational. When you open the Bhagavatam, then Prabhupada says you can see Krishna in every single page of the Bhagavatam. Krishna tulya bhagavata vibhu sarvashray prati shloke prati akshare nana arthakai. Krishna tulya, Krishna is the Bhagavatam. So here you're coming face to face with Krishna. So that's why when we read, oftentimes we have that experience also when we read or when we're in a class. At least in those moments, fear disappears, because immediately we've brought a transcendental perspective to it. So the first way to process fear is to constantly be in contact with the Shastra, because the Shastra is helping you to gain some perspective to your fear, transcendental. The Shastra gives you the vision of eternity, and when you see your vision, your fear on the backdrop of the vision of eternity, is kind of like, well, that doesn't make much sense. Right? So that's the first thing we do. And then it's not just the book Bhagavata, but it's the person Bhagavata. So then the Vaishnavas, then Guyam, Akyati, Prachyati, one should reveal the fears to the Vaishnavas. And by sharing the fears, by then getting the transcendental perspective from them. I was reading yesterday on the plane, the one good thing about a delayed flight is I got a lot of reading done. So I was actually somehow on my phone, what appeared yesterday was I had made some notes from Amrita Vani, which is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's instructions. And he writes something, this is amazing, I really like this. He wrote, what does real association with devotees, what does it actually entail? How do you know if you're actually associating with devotees? And this is what he says. Real association with devotees is only if you do three things. Number one, if you're honest in your dealings with that person. If you associate with a Vaishnav but there's no honesty in that dealing, you can't really have been said to associate. And then he says the second thing is, only if there is exchange of Harikatha or some Vani from the Shastra. That has to be there, otherwise you haven't really associated. And he says the third thing is there then has to be acting on the inspiration that you've received in that association and making a change to your life. If you do those three things, then you can be said, then you can say you've associated with a Vaishnava. You're honest, you gain some transcendental perspective together, and then you go and make a change in your life based on what you've actually interacted. Then you've actually had association of a Vaishnava. That was like, wow. I think I need to do some more sadhu sangha, like real sadhu sangha. So then we're going also to the person Bhagavata, and through them we are processing our fear. And then of course we are turning to the holy name of Krishna, because in this day and age, Kali Kaler Nama Rupe Krishna Avatar. If we want to really bring Krishna in his most powerful way in this age, then it has to be through Nam. Therefore, Indra Prabhu says, Krishna says, Mam ekam saranam braja. But Mam, in the age of Kali Yuga, Kali Kaler Nam is Nam. So therefore, Nam eka saranam braja. Nama ekam. Nama ekam. One must take the name of Krishna. So then yes, to then process that fear by coming in front of the holy name of Krishna, and then allowing Krishna, who even fear personified is running away from, that Krishna in the form of Nam can remove. So these are some ways in which we process fear, by gaining transcendental perspective through the Shastra, through the Vaishnavas, and then to ultimately come before Krishna and allow Nam to remove that apprehension. Yes. Okay, Prabhu and then Mataji.
Ну, чтобы не было страха, должна быть внутренняя чистота, внутри тела, самого тела.
Это комментарий, да?
Ну да.
If we want to remove fear, we have to have some purity inside us.
Чистота организма.
And purity of our body.
Потом наружная чистота организма. Тело.
Also important the external purity.
И ментальная чистота. Должна быть хорошая молитва.
And should be mental purity, good prayers.
Тогда никто не сможет вас, ну, типа, покорить или как-то.
Then nobody can conquer you.
Говорят просто пост и молитва.
People say prayer and fasting.
Тогда ты защищен.
Then you protected.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Yes. So we need mental purity. All fear is in the mind. Fear is, it's all in the mind, which has been overcome by Maya. Therefore, Yaha Krishna tahan nahi. Therefore, yes, the mind has to become pure. The mind has to be become the resting place of Krishna. Mama mandire. My mind has to become the resting place of Krishna. So yes, how will the mind and the heart become the resting place of Krishna if it is not pure, clean? Therefore, yes, this is what the devotee is doing. They are cleansing their heart, their mind. And in this way, Krishna is residing there, and there is no more fear. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj. I have an additional question to Brahmachari's question. How to make good relationships with devotees when we all have the propensity to cheat?
How to make good relationships with devotees when we all have the propensity to cheat? Don't cheat. Firstly, knowing that we all have the 4 weaknesses, the propensity to cheat, knowing that these tendencies are within ourselves, knowing that we've cheated people many, many times, that means that when we go to create a relationship with someone, we should not have unrealistic expectations. The first problem in relationship building is that we have a utopian idea of how that person should be and how they should relate with me in a relationship. And therefore what's happening is, before the relationship has even begun, we've created such a high level of expectation that then ultimately, as soon as some weakness appears, we just write it off completely. In this world, which relationships are just gonna be perfect, like from day one? Like, there's gonna be some level of imperfection in any relationship, and therefore we have to have realistic expectations to allow for growth in that relationship. So the first thing is to realize our own imperfections, realize the imperfections of others are just a symptom of Kali Yuga, and then when we're coming together, to be realistic and realize that relationships require work, they require forgiveness, they require understanding. And then I think the second thing is that see, like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, weakness is not a problem, but duplicity is, or cheating is. So in our weakness, we should try to factor in honesty. So even if there's some cheating or some weakness, very quickly we have to come back and bring honesty back into that relationship. And honesty requires humility. Therefore, without relationships, without humility, there is no relationship. So it means relationship building means, number 1, realistic expectations. Number 2, it means honest declarations of when one is falling short, and one is honest about that and ready to try to take the humble position and improve. And ultimately, relationships work and overcome even cheating propensity when somehow in that relationship we can inspire each other to go to Krishna. Because as we inspire each other to go to Krishna, you see, sometimes you'll be in a relationship with someone and you know they have weaknesses, you know they're cheating. But in that relationship, if you can still somehow make it that you inspire each other to go towards Krishna, then they will improve, you will improve, and by helping each other to elevate yourselves, then you'll elevate yourselves out of that cheating as well. And sometimes relationships, you just have to give them some breathing space and say that in this relationship at this time there's no opportunity for growth or improvement. So at this time we don't write it off, but we just let it be. And we come back to a relationship when there is scope for improvement. So sometimes you may also have to do that. Some ideas. Yes?
My question was relating to the fear of uncertainty. My question was in relation to the fear of uncertainty and also a discontentment. I was this morning listening to a lecture by His Holiness Bhakti Keshava Swami Maharaj, and he said, similarly, like you said, living in the now, and he was mentioning that. And one thing that really stayed with me is that he said how a devotee should always be discontent with how they are serving and how much they can do in spiritual life. So this is something that really, in a good way, scarred me. This discontentment. And at the same time I was quite reflecting, and even through your lecture I think that reflection deepened, that if I really examine myself, that I can know what is the right thing to do, which path to head, and how to follow what I chose in a way. But at the same time I think this fear of uncertainty is just so strong. And at the same time, when you're also discontent with your own self, like at least for me on a personal level, I feel like I'm not, good enough in a way or something. And then to like really think that, okay, my goal is so high and I'm like this. And that discontentment and fear of uncertainty somehow comes together. And maybe it's not even a properly framed question, but if you could please address this in some way, that would be very kind.
Thank you. Yes. Yes, a devotee should also be discontent. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Santushta Shatatam Yogi, that the yogi is fully satisfied, fully content. But then even that has to be framed. In the Niti Shastra, it said that there's 3 things a devotee should always be satisfied with, and 3 things they should always be dissatisfied with. First, I'll tell you the ones you should be satisfied with. The 3 things Niti says you should be satisfied with is, number 1, whoever you get married to. You should. There's always a tendency, you know, the neighbor has a better husband, the neighbor has a better wife. No, whoever you got married to, that is also Krishna's arrangement. Second thing, whatever prasadam you get, you should be satisfied. Whatever prasadam comes, perpetual can be potatoes again. And the third thing is how much wealth you have. That's whatever wealth comes by Krishna's. Because if you have more or if you have less, you know, wealth means if you don't have it, you're crying, and if you have it, you're crying. There's a story actually. One man, he went to the hospital. It was like a mental health hospital. So he went into a room and the person was like, Lulu. He goes, wow, what happened to this person? Because he wanted to get married to Lulu, but she left him. He goes, oh God, man, it's powerful. He went to the next room and then the person was in there. He's got Lulu. He goes, Mike, what happened to this person? This Lulu is powerful. And he said, no, this is the one that got married to Lulu. It's like that, you know. Funny, if you don't get it, you go mad. Oh my God, I didn't get it. Or something, relationship, I didn't get it. And then if you get it, you also go mad. Again, if you've invested your hopes in those things, whether you get it or you don't get it, it's going to cause you anxiety. The problem is you've invested yourself in it. So Niti says these 3 things, be satisfied with it. But then Niti says there should be 3 things you should never be satisfied with. He says first thing is your study of Shastra. You should never Yatrinvatam rasa jnanam svadu pade vayam tu na vitripyama uttama shloka vikrame. The sages say we never tire of hearing, because this is rasa jnanam svadu pade. I mean, just relishing. So never be satisfied with your study of Shastra. Never be satisfied with your chanting of the holy name. You should look and come in front of Krishna, say, Krishna, you've made yourself so available, and what are we chanting? Broken names. And then the third thing Niti says is that you should never be satisfied with how much charity you have given. No, I did my bit. I handed over my check. No, you should always want to give more. Give more. Vaishnav charity means not just to give your artha, not just to give your dhiya, your vacha, but to give your very prana. Vaishnav generosity means to give your very self. Wow. So yes, we should be discontent with these things. We should always desire, I should do more, I should give more. So that's just a comment on your point that His Holiness Bhaktacharya Maharaj was making about being discontent. And yes, uncertainty is always there, overshadowing us. What will happen? Will it happen? How will it happen? What if it doesn't happen? So much uncertainty. Well, to bring in another Acharya of our time, Steve Jobs, who I think, had some realizations as well. He says every day when I wake up, he confronts death. And he says, before death, you're naked, because everything is taken away. And he says that I found that contemplating death as the ultimate uncertainty releases you from all other uncertainties in this world, because when you are very clear that one day everything is going to be taken away anyway, that's the ultimate uncertainty. Then all the other uncertainties, they don't seem to hold the same grasp on you, because you think, anyway I'm going to lose everything. Anyway everything's going to go. So it might sound like something very, very transcendental. It might sound like something way beyond my level of realization right now. But Krishna does say that. Janma mrityu jara vyadi dukha dosha nudarshanam. Be awake to the reality that this whole world is volatile. This whole world is constantly changing. Change is unstoppable, is unpredictable, and is uncontrollable. Is definitely going to happen. You don't know how it's going to happen, and you don't know when it's going to happen, but one thing you can be sure of, it will definitely happen. And therefore this world is uncertain. We think uncertainty is in a decision. We think uncertainty is in a direction. It's also a risk to not take a risk. You ever thought about that one? It's a risk to not take a risk. We think that action brings uncertainty, but inaction brings just as much uncertainty. We think making a decision brings uncertainty, but not making that decision also brings uncertainty. Because we live in an uncertain world. Ma mupaidya punarjanma dukalayam shashvatam. Because the whole thing is temporary, and therefore the whole thing is uncertain. And so everything is uncertain. So sometimes we make this vision in our head that making a decision is somehow more dangerous than not making a decision. That is actually completely false. Everything's a risk. So anyway, this is not to encourage everyone to be like completely kamikaze and just like, just okay, let's do it. But we must also realize that we do have this default tendency that we think, oh no, I'll take the safe option. I'll take the safe option. No, there are no safe options in this world. Nothing's a safe option, because mrityu sarva haraschaham, Krishna will come eventually and take everything away anyway. So there's no safe option. So anyway, it's good to just balance ourselves with these are just some thoughts. I don't know if that helps. Alright, I think time is going on and we have more days to come. So thank you so much. Apologies for being slightly late this morning. Just to be totally honest with you and not cheat you, I fell asleep. Came back really late and then so I was just gathering myself before coming down. So thank you very much. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Svayam Bhagavan Keshava ki jai. Today Harina? Yes. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. I just want to announce, because many of you are guests and not in the WhatsApp group, we're going to do Harinam today at the lake from 4 to 6 p.m. So if you're free, please come join us.
I was wondering any changes in your diet? Wonderful, but we can reserve you.
Takes some time to arrive. Oh, ciao. I'm here until Sunday. We'll go to London on Saturday, and then Sunday we'll go to the Bhakti retreat, and then from there go to the UK. Yeah, I can take it. Sure.
Yeah, there is one devotee, Rama. He's, are you coming to the Bhakti retreat? I think if you give me a copy, you can take it. Let's see what yes, please. People love to hear the story. Prabhupada always wanted the devotees to write, so yeah, when you write a book, it's like you go on a journey That's why I said, that's why the devotee is constantly doing is trying to bring Krishna.